So this video is going to address some of the issues with a couple of my patients in regards to their lower extremities, their legs, right? Talking in normal speak for a moment. We're going to focus on everything from toe mobility and stability. From there, going to the knees and hamstrings. And we're actually going to end this on the QLs, the quadratus lumborum. The idea being that the kinetic chain running from the toe, up the calves, through the inner thigh, hamstrings, into the QLs on either side is going to be one long strip to address together, right? So this is meant for sciatic issues, hamstring-related issues, toe, ankle, knee things, where the problem is coming from that posterior chain. We're going to start with the toes. So starting off very easy, we're simply going to practice keeping the toes fixed on the ground, spreading them as wide as you can, and then slowly letting the heel come up and bearing some weight, right? Now, some folks might be only able to get this far before the stiffness in the toe gets in the way. That's fine. You find your end range of motion and apply weight down wherever that is. In my case, that's about here, right? And good for me that I can do that. But you go wherever you need to be to find that end point for your range and carry on. We're going to do that on both sides. For the sake of demonstration, I'm going to go through this not necessarily quickly, but I'm not going to do all the reps per se, just because this video would take a little while if I was teaching and demonstrating the whole thing at the same time. Typically, you're going to do each movement for, let's say, 30 seconds to a minute, and then move to the next thing. Okay? Once you got used to mobilizing those toes, we're going to start to add a little bit more demand on them. The way we're going to do that is we're going to squat down, or lunge down, I should say. Okay? You can put a pillow beneath the stance leg if you need to. Apply weight to the front leg, and you're going to go up on your toes and lean forward. This should allow you more range because there's less weight to carry in a safe way. And the big thing here is as I'm going forward, right, I'm keeping most of my weight distributed between the front and back so that it's easier for me to do on the toe that's not as mobile. And then I'm pushing down with the big toe, right, plantar flexing for those of that vocabulary, to drive me back. So it's going to be my hips, my glutes tightening to drive me forward, and my toes driving down to bring me back. There's a bit of a wave action to this, if we want it to be as such. And that's appropriate for this type of drill. Same thing on the other side. If you want, you can actually practice dorsiflexing the big toe for the stance leg as well. If you have that range, great. If not, don't worry about it. You can be flat-footed or have the toe curled, whatever makes sense for you. And same thing, I'm going to lead with the glute. My glutes are going to drive me forward, pull me into a bit of toe dorsiflexion. I'm going to drive the toe down, plantar flex hard, sending me back. Back and forth, and back and forth. There's going to be some strain in this if you're working your ranges, but ideally this should be a relatively relaxed movement. This is a mobility drill right now, as opposed to a strength drill. This should not feel like you're breaking a sweat just yet. That being said, as you do this, as you get more mobility, you're going to draw the leg closer and closer, because what's going to happen eventually is you can just kind of do that. And eventually that's no big deal. That's the point. Ideally, you want to get to about 70 to 90 degrees of toe dorsiflexion. That's where you have enough space to start using it effectively for other movements, squats, deadlifts, jumps, hinges, etc. The problem is when your big toe can't dorsiflex enough, right? Enough defined as at least 70 degrees in this conversation. In order to walk well, you need to compensate certain ways. You're either going to kind of march your gait, right? Stomping a little bit, or you're going to collapse your knees in to make up the extra range. One version leads to some back pain. The other version leads to some bunions, and neither of those are necessarily advantageous. So this is your way of protecting yourself against that, or if you have an early phase of it, recovering from it. Okay, so once we get past the toes, we're going to go back onto the ankles. Now this you can do either standing or in this half kneeling position. If you need to use support, you can even use these yoga blocks or whatever else you got to give you some more control over the weight distribution. But the idea is you're now going to go into whatever dorsiflexion you have, okay? And then you're going to practice making these little ankle circles to make sure that the ankles are supple. Make sure to go clockwise and counterclockwise. Make it a point as you get more comfortable to try to spread the toes and press them down into the ground as you do this ankle mobility, just to start to get used to all those things. Same thing on the other side, right? You're going to distribute your weight however you need to keep it comfortable. Dorsiflex to your end range of motion, spread out the toes, drive it to the ground, and just practice making little circles with all that contact. You're not going to move much, and that's okay. But the point is you're waking up those systems for the next drill. Okay. From here, we have a couple ways you can play this. You can practice your split squats, right? Go from here and send it over. However, for the sake of this particular video, we're going to take that out and we're going to focus on the hamstring aspect next. We're going to do something called elephant walk. So we're going to do that. Okay? You're going to reach up, elevate your shoulders, get your chest high, send your hips back, look forward, and as you're going forward, eventually you're going to have to collapse down, get your fingers, knuckles, palms, whatever you have, to the ground. Make steady contact, and you're going to practice straightening and bending each leg and being comfortable with that range. There's good literature to support that passive stretching gets you better pain tolerance at the end ranges of motion, helps you get to these endpoints. However, it doesn't really build strength and stability in these ranges. So you want to use a combination of passive and active stretching to both expand where you can move and reinforce those new ranges. What you don't want to do is stretch so far, ego stretch it, to the point where you're limp and, basically useless. At the same time, if all you do is get strong in the ranges you have but never expand it out, then you start to get progressively stiffer, and that has its own consequences. As you get more comfortable with these elephant walks, what you do is go deeper. A lot of folks will start on these blocks and practice until this is easy. Lower the blocks down. Do the same thing. When the blocks are no longer necessary, they'll make contact on the fingers. Go down to the knuckles. And for those who are totally warmed up and ready, let's see if I can do it this time. Get down to the palms. There we go. Once you get that far, this is a good time to probably take a quick break, shake out the tension in the legs. When I say that, I don't mean mess around on the phone. I mean actually shake your legs. There are fast and loose drills in the Strong First training. They talk about shaking out that lactic acid, giving your body a break. The shake helps get all that out of you so that you're supple for the next run. It's kind of the equivalent for vocalists, right? There are certain ways to sing and move that relax your breath and lungs for the next hard note to hit, right? I say that because my daughter's been singing Golden a lot lately, the K-pop Demon Hunter song. I say that as if I'm not singing along with her. Okay, that movie's dope, by the way. You should watch it. Okay, so once you do the elephant walks on both legs, right, what you're going to do, reach up, same basic technique, get all the way down, get down as low as you can. I'm going to practice with my feet over my hands, and what you're going to do is you're going to practice squatting down a little bit and standing up all the way. 1, 2, 1, 2. In effect, it's the same thing as the elephant walk, but now we're coordinating both legs. Because the cool thing with the elephant walk is you get to distribute the tension across one tight leg and one not so tight leg. When you're doing it like this, there's no escape. I recommend you do several sets of pumping in and out of the motion like this, making it a point to get closer and closer to the ground as you get comfort. When you find your end range, whatever that is for you for that session, what you're going to do is just a long rep, holding it down. and relaxing into it. Take this as a moment to chill out, shake out the tension again, right? Walk around a bit, but make it a point that during these little recovery intervals, you don't stand too still. What I don't want to have happen is you accumulate tension and get all stiff for the next thing. Okay. Once you're ready, okay, the next position is going to be standing. A little lunge, a little forward stance like this. You're going to raise your raise your front foot up, keep the heel down. You're going to scoot the hips back. You can tell how these are related motions, right? And what you're going to do is practice bringing your chest down towards your feet. Pick a spot to put your gaze so that you're focused on the bringing your chest down, not so much the bringing your face to the thing. The difference being, if we do it right, this builds a lot of tension in the hamstrings in a relatively short range. By contrast, this, I can go much farther, but nothing interesting is happening. Again, take the ego out of this. I don't care how far you bend. I care that you develop the systems that are relevant for the drill, right? If the goal is to get your head to touch the knees, there's better ways to do that, right? But if the goal is to increase your hamstring mobility and stability, then you technically want that constraint, right? It's not about how far you get. It's about putting tension where it belongs. And same thing, spend a couple reps entering and exiting that end point. When you feel like you've lubricated that motion, but before you've begun to fatigue, hold the position. Take some deep breaths and releases. Use the breath out to force some extra relaxation. Really sink into that motion and get out of there. Okay. The next several drills will be done on the floor, and then that's it. This is a relatively short video, all things considered. But you can play with the reps and sets to match what you need. You can add and subtract from this to focus on your sticking points, right? So for example, my toes are very mobile, right? I don't recommend people do this, right? At the same time, if the toes are your sticking point, you're going to put more time there, whatever it is. For me, it's the hamstring, so I really focus on the elephant walks personally. Okay, next movement. You're going to go down to the half kneeling position just like before, okay? From the half kneeling, draw that foot out. Don't worry about how far you put it for now, because you can always adjust that pending the drill. Take two hands, shoot them forward, get your fingertips or palms, depending on your mobility, to the floor on either side of the foot. My chest is close to my knee, right? What should I do? From here, I'm going to push forward, look up, and then I'm going to use my foot and my toes to push myself back and look down. 1, 2, 1, 2. First position is a break. Maybe a little quad mobility for the back leg if you want it to be. Second position, active contraction to push my knee down, leading with my foot to draw tension into the hamstring. 1, 2, 1, 2. Do the same thing on the other side. Okay? With my hips square like this, it doesn't put that much strain on the hip flexors. Like I said, if you want to make this into the progression towards a front split, be my guest. Make this as hard as you want. For now, I'm just focused on the front leg. And again, put a pillow or something here if you're not used to being on the floor like this. A lot of folks have patellofemoral issues, right? And there's no shame in that. Don't be a tough guy. Just put a dang pillow there. It's okay. Palms. Touch. Position 1. Position 2. 1, 2. 1 and 2. As you get more comfortable, lower your hands. Let's try from the palms. I'm just to see if I can do it. 1. There it is, just barely. 1. There it is. And you can see where my limitations are. Good. Once you get the motion groove, recurring theme here, get into that end range, push it back, and sit there for a while. Relax into it. The evidence suggests that 5 minutes of stretching once per week will show progressive gains. As in, you can do 1 minute of a given mobility drill or stretch 5 days a week and make progress. Or you can do 2 sets of 30. Break it up however you want to, but you want 5 accumulated minutes of a given mobility drill to really push that line to start seeing gains week by week. I didn't make that up. That's from some literature. And even then, I ran into that literature through this guy, Stay Flexy, I believe is his channel. He's way bendier than I am. You should check his stuff out. It's pretty dope. Okay. Once we have all that, same thing. Take a break, shake out the legs, shake out the tension. We're going to start moving into the quadratus lumborum, as in the portion where it becomes about the back. Okay? Now I say that, but you're going to notice the first thing we're going to do to get at the back is a straddle position, a side split type of progression. And that's because the inner thighs wire into the QLs in a meaningful way. So if we're going to get at these, we start with these. So what you're going to do, now that the hamstrings are less in the way, right? They've been nice and mobile. Straddle to whatever comfortable margin you have. And I'm emphasizing comfortable margin. This isn't an actual side split, middle split progression. This is just creating space in your hips. Take as much or as little as you need, okay? You're going to keep your legs straight, maybe a little knee bend if you need it. What you're going to do is a straddled good morning. The way we're going to do that is we're going to either reach up or keep our arms behind us, but the point is we're going to keep a neutral spine, okay? And you're going to push the hips back and bring your chest forward and down. As you do this, you should feel it in your hamstrings a little bit, but mostly in your inner thighs, your adductors. If you do, you're spot on. If you don't, widen your stance. And again, you go as far as you need to get the strain where it belongs. I don't care how far you go. I care that the stretch goes where it belongs. Focus on the inner thighs, push the hips back, bring your chest down. Sometimes you may need to use these for balance, and that's perfectly fine, right? So what you can do, up position, down position, and kind of use these so that you can kind of support yourself in the motion. Just make sure that as you do it, you don't round your back over, because that kind of defeats the purpose. Proud chest, hips back, with or without support. Once you find your end point, sit in it for a while. Maybe contract the thighs, release the thighs, contract and release. Bend the knees slightly, bring your feet in, and get on out of there. Okay. Now from here, we're going to need to preload the adductors to take the slack out of them to then effectively get to the QLs, okay? If you're very stiff, you may not need to do that yet, and that's great. If you're a bit mobile, but this is your sticking point, you might notice that you have a lot of range when your legs are narrow, hips are narrow, but you lose a lot of range in your back when your hips are anywhere abducted. Again, this part is modular. This is just the setup, okay? I'm going to do this from a straddled position to kind of show what that's like. What you're going to do, same basic concept as a straddle good morning, push the hips back, Okay? Take one palm, bring it down. Let's get these out the way so you can see what I'm up to. Take the other arm and reach up. Same basic principle. I'm going to hinge back, give my back a little bit of extension, palm goes down. Okay, from here, other arm goes up. My gaze is following my thumb or my fingertips. And I'm pressing into that. Softening the knees, getting out there, going for the next one. Same thing again. For those who are very mobile, or again, for those where the sticking point isn't the QLs per se, you might notice that you have to cross midline to make this work for you, and that's fine. Hinge back, palm down. Maybe you have to go back further to make it work. Almost like you're walking it over. And that's fine. For those who don't have that, maybe you need these yoga blocks or a box of diapers. You get the idea. It doesn't really matter. The point is, you operate at the level that you are and just progressively get better. One more sequence and then we're done. What we're going to do is a seated QL stretch. We can either do it in a half straddle like this or a full straddle. Depends on your level of skill. For now, I'm going to demonstrate the half straddle. The key parts to making this work is going to be the orientation of my torso relative to my hips. My torso, neck, gaze is fixed forward. We're going to call this our 0, okay? My hip is going to be abducted, externally rotated to some degree. Call it about 45 to 90 degrees, whatever angle my hip can do. Right? You might be here. You might be way back over there. I'm somewhere around 70 degrees-ish. That's where it fits for me. Again, nobody cares, no big deal. But you find the angle that gives you a little bit of preload in the adductors, in the inner thighs, to then make this effective. I'm going to keep my gaze forward, okay? I'm going to take my same side arm and slide it down, aiming towards my inner side of my foot, towards the big toe side. And if you watch what I'm doing, I'm going to start to side bend towards the lengthened leg. If I have the range, I can anchor my hand into the inner portion of my heel and help pull me down, and use this to create some resistance to pull me down further. Position 1, position 2, position 1, position 2. Now where it gets dicey is, as you build tension, there's going to be a tendency to want to do this, because this is just easier. That's not a bad stretch. That's great. That's for the hamstrings, actually. However, for the sake of this drill, if I want it to be hamstring oriented, boom, but we already did that, right? To help this cross over into the QLs, I really want to keep that zeroed in torso, hip rotated out at whatever degree, and I'm focusing on the side bending more so than the hinging. A way to keep myself accountable to that is, while I bring my same side hand towards the inner aspect of my foot, I can turn my gaze towards the other palm, reach this towards the ceiling, and do it like this. And in doing so, keeping my gaze that way, it forces me to stay neutral, right? Because I have a tendency to want to collapse inward. I have an active task turning me outward. The net effect is I'm going to do something closer to this. You can see the applications of this motion in various things, whether it's athletic or aesthetic. As you get more and more competent, right, a more mobile me from once upon a time ago, you can actually take that position and side bend so far that you take this hand over there. I am not that person right now, so I'm not. Eventually, this might get easy for you, or you might find out that you can't build enough tension in your adductors to make this hit your QLs. If that's the case, that's fine. That just means you do this at a full straddle. It doesn't have to be far, but by giving some adductor tension here, a little bit here, this helps me stay tight where I need to be tight, right? And now I can really focus on the drill. Same thing on the other side. And learning how to be here, this is the QL work. Now, an interesting detail, if the abdominal diaphragm is the muscle that helps you breathe in deep, draw air, the muscle that controls the rate of exhalation, the rate that air moves out of you, is actually the QL. Why do I talk about this? I bring this up because although breath work is good for all of this mobility, stretching, calisthenic, blah, 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 it is particularly useful when working the QLs because the QL can be framed both as a support structure for your back, for your deadlifts, your squats, your cleans, your all that athletic, like badass stuff. It's also the muscle that's responsible for controlling your rate of exhalation, which means something like a big breath in with a breath hold, with a drawn out exhalation, targets the thing of interest for this drill. So we could do something like get to whatever your active barrier is, right? I'm pulling myself into it. Notice my hand's just here to spot. It's not like doing that more than necessary. Once I have this, I can take a deep breath in. I can feel the tension in my QL and use the exhalation to draw some extra range as long as I'm making it a point to not collapse my shoulders inward. Let's do it again. Repeat till desired outcome. After all that's done, you're probably going to want to just walk around, have fun. This is a good training to do after your primary lifts or on an off day. What you don't want to do is do this type of training and then do your strength training, because all the mobility, the limberness here, frankly, leaves you vulnerable. So like, I wouldn't do this and then do a max effort deadlift. I wouldn't do this and run my snatches, right? Because again, they're both very noble, good, appropriate things to pursue, but just like when you do a hard set of snatches, you really shouldn't be sitting down for a while to protect your back. After doing mobility work like this, you really shouldn't be doing high explosive, high speed activities until everything kind of resets. Give it a couple hours, or just do it on a different day, right? Like most of you guys know by now that I'm going to swing kettlebells because it's Tuesday. I'm going to do that tonight after I'm done with the clinic versus during my lunch break, which is what this is. All right, that's what we got.